I assure you, brother, the sun will shine on us again.
Your optimism is misplaced, Asgardian.
Well, for one thing, I'm not Asgardian. And for another, we have a Hulk.
It's very exciting. And I found it quite, it's an odd thing to say, but I found it quite touching because I remember when I was cast as Loki for the very first time, almost 10 years ago, and Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel Studios, called me into his office to say congratulations, and then one of the first things he said was, "Let me talk to you about Avengers." And I thought I'd just been cast in Thor,
right?
And he's told me the dream he had to build this fleet of films, this Marvel cinematic universe that was culminating in Avengers, and suddenly the Marvel Cinematic Universe has expanded to such an extraordinary size that it can encompass and encapsulate so many different characters who people have taken to their hearts and followed and loved, and I feel so lucky to be a part of it. So that's why I found it exciting.
Hey everybody, it's Charlie. We got a whole bunch of Loki and Avengers to talk about during Marvel Phase 4. They just confirmed a whole bunch of details about the Loki TV series, and we have a little teaser plot synopsis that I'll break down. There's a new round of that Amazon giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave your favorite Loki moment on the video. So if you have no idea what's going on, Tom Hiddleston is coming back to play Loki in an ongoing Marvel TV series for the Disney Plus streaming service. It's going to be one of many Avengers spin-off TV series with the MCU actors. So this isn't like somebody else that they're going to cast as Loki. This is Tom Hiddleston playing his character in brand new episodes that'll probably be premiering later this year. Really important stuff first. What is it about? What are they actually going to be doing? Because Loki supposedly died during Infinity War, so how are they going to address Avengers Endgame and what's going on during the movies right now? It'll make a little more sense when I explain what the plot actually is. So what they're saying is that the show will follow Loki as he pops up throughout human history as an unlikely influencer of historical events. So think about real-life events and big events in the MCU's history.
If you keep speaking, I just might.
Fine, as you wish. I'm not even here. Is this better?
It's better company, at least.
Still, we could be less conspicuous. Brother, you look ravishing.
It will hurt no less when I kill you in this form.
Very well. Perhaps you prefer one of your new companions, given that you seem to like them so much.
Oh, this is much better. Whoa. Costume's a bit much. So tight. With the confidence, I can feel the righteousness surging. Hey, you want to have a rousing discussion about truth, honor, patriotism? God bless them!
The bigger question, I think, though, is when does it actually take place when it picks up? Is this going to be a version of Loki from before Thanos killed him in Avengers Infinity War, or after Avengers Endgame, which we know Tom Hiddleston's Loki is going to guest star during, but it's going to be an earlier version of Loki from the events of the Battle of New York. So even though Loki is back in Avengers Endgame, it's not this version of Loki coming back to life, but it's important to note that we don't know if there are going to be multiple versions of Loki showing up during Avengers Endgame because it's so big and it's still wide open to speculation. So there is a chance that a post-Thanos version of Loki could also show up in some form during the movie. I know there's a lot of Loki truthers out there that want to believe that he faked his death. Tom Hiddleston has said that he thinks that Loki died sacrificing himself in a final act of redemption, which would imply that he's pretty dead after this moment. And if you look at all the differences in the earlier versions of the Infinity War script and the final script, they made it pretty clear that the Russos and the screenwriters intended for him to die in this moment. So if a post-Thanos version of Loki comes back during Endgame going into Phase 4, it would have to be in the form of a vision to Thor, the same way that Odin speaks to Thor from Valhalla, from beyond death, which Loki is also capable of doing and has done many times in the comics. So no big surprise there that he's not bound by space, time, or death. It just doesn't work exactly the way that you might think it does. The thing about the Loki character is that they have really clever ways of bending traditional rules that other regular characters are bound by. The easiest way, hands down, to just address all these issues is just to show a younger version of the character just visiting Earth for purposes of mischief managed throughout the years leading up to the events of the first Thor film in all the other MCU films, any of the timeline that he's been alive for in present day. So just because it might be a younger version of the character doesn't mean that he couldn't also hop around during the timeline of the Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 movies up to the events of Infinity War, where this Loki wound up dying. That is how you get your Chris Hemsworth Thor cameos. He can play any number of younger versions of himself. He's 1,500 years old in present day, so presumably they'll do some much younger stuff and show multiple versions of the character, including Tom Hiddleston. Like you have Kid Loki, you have female Loki. He's a shapeshifter, so they're probably going to have a lot of fun with the people that he impersonates.
There was one time when we were children, he transformed himself into a snake, and he knows that I love snakes. So I went to pick up the snake to admire it, and he transformed back into himself, and he was like, "Yeah, it's me!" And he stabbed me. We were 8 at the time.
You can also get your Odin and your Frigga cameos. I would argue that Frigga is probably a more important character for his upbringing if they're going to do a very young version of the character, like you show him learning magic and then just using it to cause mischief on planet Earth. But because they're using all the movie actors in these Kevin Feige Avengers TV series, and they are Kevin Feige's series, he's personally making them himself with other showrunners and producers in a way that he does not with the regular Marvel TV shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That means that they have access to all the movie actors that you're seeing in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. But if for some reason they have a problem and they're not able to get Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans, for instance, or the other Avengers to guest star in episodes, you can do younger versions of those characters as Loki pops up during history. You have a teenage version of Tony Stark popping up, or you see Loki show up during World War II and mess with something while Captain America is fighting Red Skull, because Loki would be very interested in the Tesseract. It was hidden in that village in Norway when the Red Skull found it. What a coincidence that in Avengers Endgame, Thor is building New Asgard in Norway. So there are a lot of places that Odin, Thor, and Loki visited on planet Earth through the eons growing up. Now remember, Thor's about 1,500 years old in present day. Loki is a little bit younger than that. Odin is the only one that's way, way older than that. In fact, speaking of the Tesseract, because it's such a big thing in Loki's history in the MCU, going back to the first Avengers film, there's an interesting story about how the Tesseract wound up in that Norway village where Red Skull found it. In the cosmic sense, after the Tesseract was created, Odin found it, put it in his vault for safekeeping. Then in ancient times, for some reason, he took it to planet Earth and for unknown reasons left it there. That's when it wound up in that village in Norway and had been there ever since, hidden in that giant wall carving of the World Tree. Another really good example of a huge real-world historical event that they inserted Thor into in the comics is in recontextualizing the story of Beowulf to say that it was based on a real thing that Thor did in the history of this Norse region. It was a Thor versus Grendel story, but in reality the Grendel that he was fighting was the primal symbiote, aka the Necro Sword, made by the god of the symbiotes, Null, interdimensional ruler of the Void from before the Celestials were created in the first firmament. So it's just a funny way to say that real-world things that we have, like the poem of Beowulf, is actually inspired by Thor. So just imagine Loki popping up during different events inspiring major things that happened during the MCU's history. So in that way, it doesn't trample on pre-existing canon. Like all the things that you saw happen in history, everything you know about the characters still happened. It's just one of those zoom and enhance situations where like you look in the background of shots and saying, oh, Loki was here, just nudging the characters a little bit. So say Captain America still defeats the Red Skull during World War II, who then gets transported to Vormir by the Space Stone, but maybe Loki nudged some of the players at times in an attempt at mischief. But also a really big tie back to Loki in the first Avengers movie, the Tesseract, very important for his character. A young Howard Stark worked on the Tesseract after they found it. Loki could also show up during that and mess with Howard Stark a little, and we see the writers winking at moments between a younger teenage Tony Stark and Loki without him realizing who he's seeing. So like an evil quantum leap with Loki jumping into different people's bodies because he's sort of shapeshifting and glamoring himself to make himself look like other people without literally traveling through time because he's just popping up as he grows up because he's so long-lived. The really important details, like I said though, the expected release date, it sounds like it's going to be at the end of this year when they launch the Disney Plus streaming service. I think they're trying to launch the service with a bunch of their original shows One of those being the Loki series, the other being the Scarlet Witch and Vision TV series. That could be any time between October and November. We'll probably get the first trailer Comic-Con this summer. The last report I saw said it was going to be 8 to 10 episodes for all the different series. So remember, there's the Loki series, there's the Scarlet Witch and Vision series, there's also a Winter Soldier and Falcon series. They'll all be 8 to 10 episodes in however many seasons they wind up going. I think just depends on how successful they are and the actors' availability. But they haven't announced any hirings for that Winter Soldier TV series, so I don't think that that one's going to premiere till next year sometime in the spring. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about this? Which events do you actually want Loki to show up for? Big MCU historical events. So it could be stuff during present day when he was alive during phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It could be back during the 80s. It could be the obvious real world historical events that aren't necessarily just MCU historical events. But I think they're going to try and maintain a certain canon with the MCU films. So what'll happen is we get any more news about it, I will totally do a new video, and obviously it's going to be a little while before we see footage, but there'll be new Avengers Endgame stuff happening in a couple weeks when Captain Marvel drops. I've also got new Captain Marvel stuff to post too. Click here for my brand new Avengers Endgame trailer and post-credit scene video, and click here to watch Ben Affleck explain why he quit being Batman before his contract was up. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.